UFC 319 takes place this Saturday, and these are my predictions and breakdowns for every single fight on the main card. This is it. This is the big one. DDP versus Khamzat Chimaev. This is easily one of my most anticipated fights of the year. Let's start off with the main event. That is Dricus du Plessis versus Khamzat Chimaev. Look, I want DDP to win, and I think for the UFC's sake, it's much better for the organisation if DDP is able to beat Khamzat Chimaev, because I think it was Dean Thomas said this, that Khamzat Chimaev would be a terrible champion, and I couldn't agree more. This guy is not an active fighter. He's a one-a-year fighter, and that just will stall another UFC division. So Khamzat Chimaev as a champion will be dog shit. But with that being said, Khamzat Chimaev is going to beat Dricus du Plessis. Now, this is a really weird one to predict because on one hand, I think I'm confident that Khamzat Chimaev is going to beat Dricus du Plessis. But then when I envision the fight, I can't see Khamzat finishing DDP. And if he can't finish DDP early, he's losing this fight. But I'm still picking Khamzat to win. And there's a couple of reasons why. Khamzat Chimaev is one of the most dominant grapplers we have ever seen in the UFC. He is one of the most dominant fighters ever in the first round. And Dricus du Plessis is extremely tough and durable. The guy is strong as well, so he might be able to match Khamzat Chimaev in strength. But DDP's grappling, it's not great, especially defensively. I mean, just some scenarios off the top of my head that make me really confident in Khamzat Chimaev beating DDP. Go back and watch the Brad Tavares fight. Dricus du Plessis quite literally pulls Brad Tavares in the top mount on him. He pulls Tavares in the mount on him. Another example, go back and watch his fight with Derek Brunson. Look at the grappling that Derek Brunson was able to get off on Dricus du Plessis. Another example, go back and watch his Darren Till fight. Look at the grappling exchanges between DDP and Darren Till. Darren Till at points gets to a dominant front headlock position on Dricus du Plessis. Darren Till.
Bruh.
Now, with all that being said, DDP beat all of those guys, but I just think Khamzat Chimaev's grappling ability is just going to be too much for Dricus, especially early on. I mean, Khamzat Chimaev is going to take down DDP. He is going to be able to control him. The thing is, can DDP survive? And I am going to make the prediction Khamzat will beat DDP inside the first 2 rounds. And what I'm going to say is a TKO. I think DDP is not going to be out, but I think Khamzat Chimaev is going to flatten them out to a point where DDP can't defend himself. You know, DDP isn't out, but Khamzat Chimaev's in a really dominant position, just raining down shots, and DDP just can't get out of that position, and the referee is forced to step in. I want DDP to win. I will be supporting Dricus du Plessis in this matchup, but my prediction for DDP versus Khamzat is Khamzat Chimaev to win. Moving on to the co-main event, we have got Lerone Murphy taking on the debut Aaron Pico. It's nice to see a company that signed a new deal for $7.7 billion can't even get a fucking portrait of a fighter on their website. It's always nice to see that shit. Lerone Murphy's beating Aaron Pico. Now, Aaron Pico is a really good wrestler. He hits extremely hard, but he's coming from Bellator. How many times can we make the same mistake over and over and over again, picking these guys? And the thing is with Aaron Pico as well is Patricio Pitbull, 2-division world champion in Bellator, made sense to pick him. Patchy Mix looked like one of the best bantamweights ever outside of the UFC, former champion. Michael Chandler, former champion. Aaron Pico never touched gold in Bellator. And when you look at his KOs, yes, he hits hard, but he was fighting cans. Look at MVP. MVP was knocking everybody out in Bellator, making them look stupid. He comes to the UFC. Now, yes, he does have a couple of wins, but the power isn't translating at all. He's not knocking people out. He's not having the same effect on the feet because the average level of competition is so much higher in the UFC. Now, Lerone Murphy, he isn't amazing anywhere. He's just good everywhere. He's kind of like a Leon Edwards of featherweight, in my opinion. The guy's got really good wrestling, both offensively and defensively. And this is another thing. American wrestling just doesn't translate well to MMA. How many more times are we going to see this play out? Also, on the feet, Lerone Murphy, I know he's been caught a couple of times, but he can take a shot well. I mean, he got cracked by Dan Ige. Dan Ige hits hard, especially in the featherweight division, and Dan Ige's been proven to hit hard against higher level of competition than what Aaron Pico's faced, which is another thing you have to counter, you have to take into mind. And on the feet, Lerone Murphy might not be very powerful, but he's really technical, and he's 5-round proven in the UFC against elite level opposition. Aaron Pico isn't. For that reason, I am picking Lerone Murphy. I am picking Lerone Murphy to beat Aaron Pico by decision. Moving on, feature fight, Jeff Neal versus Carlos Prates. Really interesting one. Obviously, Carlos Prates is coming off that loss to Ian Gary, which kind of dwindled his stock a bit. Jeff Neal, we haven't seen him in a while. He last fought at UFC 308, was it? And it wasn't really much of a fight. RDA ended up hurting his knee, and that was the fight kind of called off. These guys were meant to fight at UFC 314. The fight was pulled because Jeff Neal was injured. Jeff Neal is a really tough and durable guy. Really good boxing, hits extremely hard. However, Carlos Prates, a tricky southpaw, good with range, also hits extremely hard and can mix it. Jeff Neal is quite a bit of a headhunter. Where Carlos Prates has a lot more tools on the feet, in my opinion, and I don't see Jeff Neal taking down Carlos Prates. There maybe could be a world where Jeff Neal overpowers Carlos Prates and holds him up against the cage, but I don't see that happening. I think the fact that he's a southpaw, the ranginess of Carlos Prates, the power of Carlos Prates, I think Jeff Neal is going to get stopped by Carlos Prates late second round. That's my prediction. A Carlos Prates win. Moving on, Jared Cannonier versus MVP. I'm taking MVP for this one. Now, there is a world where Jared Cannonier, who has really good leg kicks, and that kind of is the kryptonite to MVP outside of grappling, is you have to hurt this guy, his lower region, kick his legs out from beneath him so he cannot do the in and out movements. You're going to have to target the legs of MVP. Granted, Jared Cannonier is like 506 years of age. MVP is still pretty old as well, but doesn't have the miles on the clock like a Jared Cannonier. Now, I could see a world where Jared Cannonier is able to control MVP, maybe up in the clinch, and kind of ride out a boring decision, but I'm going to pick MVP to win this matchup. I could see a finish for MVP, but I'm probably going to go decision. I think MVP is just... He is going to be a problem for anybody to work out on the feet, and I don't think Jared Cannonier, yes, he's very technical, but he isn't the quickest, and I think he's going to really struggle to read the movement of MVP, and I think MVP is going to be able to beat him just by being too quick and too awkward. I'm taking MVP in this one. Moving on to the main card opener, Tim Elliot versus Kayasakur. I'm taking Kayasakur. Now, Tim Elliot is tough and durable, obviously has that grappling threat. It's hard to really look into Kayasakur's UFC debut. That was against Pantoja. Kayasakur is massive for the flyweight division. He's very unorthodox on the feet. He's very fast as well, despite being a massive flyweight. I think he's going to stop Tim Elliot. I think Kayasakur gets the job done here. Moving on, Bobby Green versus Diego Ferrer. Bobby Green is on like a 2-fight losing streak, I think, coming off that crazy spinning heel kick KO from Mauricio Huffy. I'm taking Diego Ferrer in this one. I was nearly sick there. 2 seconds. Now, this is an Unk versus Unk matchup. I'm sick, but the videos still keep coming. I think Diego Ferrer is going to be able to utilise his grappling in here and beat Bobby Green. I could see a submission. I could see a submission in the 3rd round for Diego Ferrer. I'm taking him to beat Bobby Green. Next up, we have got GM3 versus Mikhail Olaseychuk. Mikhail Olaseychuk obviously he's got a big advantage on the feet here against GM3. He's training with the fighting nerds. But I'm going to go for GM3 to get a submission. I think GM3 is going to be able to sub Mikhail Olaseychuk. I don't know, I just envision a sub for GM3. I think he's going to get the submission in this matchup. Jessica Andraj versus Lupine Godinez. I'm picking Lupine Godinez to win this matchup. It's a women's MMA fight. Nobody cares about it. Let's move on. Chase Hooper versus Alexander Hernandez. Do you remember Alex Hernandez before he got knocked out by Donald Cerrone? When he beat Beneil Dariush? He's a very good, well-rounded fighter, but comes apart as the fight goes on. Now, his cardio is a bit better up at lightweight than what it is at featherweight. Chase Hooper's on a bit of a run. I think Kayasakur might be in a bit of trouble early on because I don't think he'll be able to match Alexander Hernandez's physicality. But I think as the fight goes on, Alexander Hernandez is proven to kind of crumble and fall apart a bit. I'm going to go for Kayasakur, who's got the momentum at the minute. Then we've got Edson Barbosa versus Drakkar Klose. I actually think Drakkar Klose is pretty underrated. Obviously, Edson Barbosa, legend of the sport, really good kickboxer. Drakkar Klose is coming off that brutal finish against Joel Alvarez. He got smoked badly in that matchup. Edson Barbosa has been MIA for about 2 years now. He is really getting up there in age. Taking a lot of damage in his previous fights against like the likes of Lerone Murphy and Sadiq Youssef. Drakkar Klose is a grappler, which is normally a problem for Edson Barbosa. But with that being said, I'm going to go Edson. I think this might be his retirement fight, you know. And the time off, I know a lot of people aren't liking the time off, but I kind of am liking the time off. And the fact that it seems like he's coming back when he's ready. He's coming back on his own times, which is always a good sign. I'm going to go Edson Barbosa to beat Drakkar Klose. And finally, we've got Bryan Battle versus... I was about to say a completely different name there. Nursultan Rusev. Bryan Battle obviously coming off that robbery win over Randy Brown. Rusev, both guys have fought at welterweight before. This is in the middleweight division. Bryan Battle isn't going to be able to out physicality Rusev, in my opinion. And Rusev hits hard. Bryan Battle's kind of easily hit, in my opinion. I think Rusev is going to beat him. Rusev 6'5", insane. Obviously, Bryan Battle has the reach advantage. He's kind of got a weird build, but I think Rusev is going to get the job done here in this matchup. So yeah, let me know your opinions in the comments below. What are your predictions for UFC 319? And as always, like, share, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff. And I will see you all again in the next one.